Hello YouTube, Ronan Kazi, Baldur's Gate 3. Recently, I bought Baldur's Gate 3 before, get a little of the play style before the game actually came out. It came out recently. I had rolled a Bard and had played that a little bit. And right off, it's a party-based game. So there's a lot of games that are like this, but it's a D&D based game. And so you have a party, and part of the story is I'm picking up members of this party. So I'm kind of already developing a backstory. I'm going to meet another party member here. I free her, but I don't have enough space for her to join. So this is my entree into meeting her. I met her earlier back on the ship. Spoiler alert. I won't go into it too much. I'm a female orc. It seemed like it had the best skills for a monk. And so there I am. Right off the bat, it's an RPG, so I enjoy RPGs. The mechanics of the game style is turn-based. And you can see here I'm rolling a 20-sided die to determine her fate. That's kind of a neat little thing. I'm going to eventually click it. Hopefully, Ronan, click it. Eventually, I'll click it. There we go. And I roll the die and boom. So keep some of the... That's a nod towards the real life game. One of the things that's different is it doesn't have automatic. Maybe it does, but I didn't find it, and I didn't really care to find it. Like, as you know, I'm trying to play these games. I don't do a lot of research on them first, so I can give you an honest view of what the game's like. I'm not trying to just do one other review that's like everyone else. This isn't really a review. This is a first look. The game's been in beta for like 6 years or something like that, so I'm definitely not the first person to talk about anything like this. But if you're used to this channel, then you kind of know my perspective on things. So right now I'm enjoying the game. We'll have some mechanics of the battle that come up. And in D&D, when you have a character sheet, depending on what stats you have, determines, if you have initiative or not to shoot first in a battle. So imagine your two parties going against each other. Everyone in both parties... There's a priority of... There's Roxy, everybody. And that might be Amazon dropping off the unrelenting supply of Amazon goods to the Ronan Kazi household. Just like everyone else in the world. But it's not. Roxy, you're tripping. And so your stats really determine the battle order. And that's kind of critical, and it's more realistic, right? They just don't automatically give your group the right of way. Sometimes you'll play JRPGs, and that might be like the Final Fantasy type of games, not the MMORPG, but the other ones. Like a very famous one is Final Fantasy VII. And so you'll each take turns, and then whoever has initiative goes first. And that can be important in a battle. So there's some strategy to all this also. We're just bitching at each other right now, you two. And I'm sorry for the mouse, right? So I forget that in these cutscenes, my mouse is still there. Because in other games, it kind of is hidden. I'm trying to, as I do more of these, I know I've only done 360 of them. But I realize you don't want to see my mouse the whole time. And so let's say you don't like your character, and there's a character, Roxy, and there's a character you like better. You can use them as the front of the party. You can come up last. You saw I had the rogue up front. And we're going to get into some battle here really quick. This is normally when I ask you to like, subscribe, share, unsubscribe, resubscribe, comment, hit the notifications. I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe. You would really help me out. I'm trying to get to 500 so I can start monetizing the channel, so I can start buying laptops. I will do a review on the laptop. The reviews are based on real use cases, so I'm just not going to force everyone to use my use case. For example, my main PC is a laptop that had to have low power but could still do decent graphics, not consume a lot of power. I don't have to be on battery for hours and hours. There's times where I have to move to the kitchen. Maybe I'll play in the kitchen if I'm cooking or doing something. So in those cases, I like to have the laptop if I'm doing something on it. I'd like to move it there. I'd like to also use this doesn't seem like a very good combo when I'm cooking and having a touchscreen, but I want to have a touchscreen too, because a lot of times if I have my laptop in tent mode, I don't have access to the keyboard. I don't need access to the keyboard. I just need a touchscreen to do what I want to do. All right, so getting back to the battle, you can see it gave me the, there's an overhead view, and I've selected this at first. I really don't like that, but I'm just showing that for demonstration purposes. And I'm going to go up there and whack that guy. Kill him. Murder him. So if you're into these types of games, and by these types of games, RPGs/RPGs that follow D&D rules sets, you will like this game. I already like the story. Now, if you compare this to something like Diablo, I don't know the history of Diablo, but let me take a stab at it without knowing the history at all of Diablo. Diablo is taking a game like this and making it more real time, in that you don't have to wait for the die rolls and all that stuff's happening in the background, where it's leveraging the speed of the computer. So if it looks a lot like Diablo, it's like Diablo and having people in a group with you, except you control them all. YouTube. And so a couple of videos ago, I talked about story. The story in this is supposed to be really good. It's a very adult, you can have this story be very expansive. There's a lot of possibilities. It's a game that maybe it's more like a 7-course meal than a fast food meal. There's a lot of layers. There's a lot of things. Always in D&D type of games, even in the desktop ones. You give the dungeon master, the game master. Again, I'm not expert at D&D, but you give that person some ideas about your character, and then you would ask them questions. Well, like, what could I jump here? And so you can kind of see on the left side are a bunch of kind of things that you can kind of do, and on the right side are kind of your spells or your attacks, and then you have your basic point and click attacks, whether you're ranged or melee. So a little bit slower paced. If you like games like Fallout 1, 2, there was a lot of Fallout games were isometric, turn-based games. That's what these are. So this is one of those games that I think you should have a game type like this in your, in your library. I have a couple games like this in my library. Like I mentioned, Fallout. The company that made this game, they have a couple of other games that are similar to this. They're their own intellectual property. This kind of stands out because this was using kind of a more game franchise that had been out for a while. I'm going to pull up my library real quick so I can kind of tell you some other games that are like this. Wasteland was a great game. Wasteland 1 was a game like this, and I played that for hours, and that's a very light resource game. One of the things I wish on phones, especially Apple, I wish they'd let you have emulators so you could play a game like that. That's a game where you don't need to pay attention. That's a game you could play in between spreadsheet clicks. And then they made another game, Wasteland 2, that followed up on that game. Of course, like I mentioned, the Fallout series. We're talking about, Fallout, Fallout 2, maybe Fallout Tactics, I can't remember. Divinity, and now Baldur's Gate. The nice thing about this type of game style, it's like playing chess, because when you're done with your turn, you could hit, move on. You could go do whatever you got to do and then come back and play. Definitely a different type of game style. And this probably isn't in a game where, you're a hardcore Call of Duty player and then you're not gonna mix this in. This is gonna be for some other time. Maybe you are on a laptop and you don't have a laptop, or first person shooter, you don't have the frames that is going to make the gameplay where you feel that it's fair or used to your normal rig. This might be a game with lower expectations as far as the hardware requirements, that you can still play the game, play it fully, but it's not constricted. There's not a restriction because of the computer you have. Has a myriad of characters, and inside each character class, excuse me, did I say character? A myriad of classes, has a myriad of races. So there's something for everyone. There isn't the level of detail. There was a game once called Neverwinter Nights 3, I think it was, that I played, that, you could be, I always was like chaotic neutral. But you could pick your alignment also, which would change how things happen in the game. And so when you play other MMORPGs, that's the common thread. When a game is a role-playing game, that's you're picking a character, that you have some type of story, that there's some type of cosmology behind your player. Whereas something like in The Division, you might have, or there's been other games where, let's say World of Warcraft, that you actually have role-playing servers. That might be too much sometimes. But, I think there was another game that I played that was really good. And I actually played it when I'm sorry, YouTube, I'm scrolling. It is another really good game. Turn-based game. Oh, gosh. I guess Pillars of Eternity was another game like that, but Shadowrun series. So Shadowrun Hong Kong, Shadowrun Dragonfall, Shadowrun Returns. Those are another set of these types of games. XCOM, when I played, I think it was XCOM 2, you were underwater. I played that. That was like that. That game was great. So YouTube, this is another genre of games. It's similar in that you have some type of the role playing where your character's leveling during this, and that's part of the fun. You have some of the story. There's a lot of different threads. I'm sure there's some other games I'm leaving out. One comes to mind, I think, is an Activision Blizzard game. I forget what it's called, but it's a really good game. Yeah, it's so good, Ronan, you forgot about it. No, it's just there's a lot of games in this genre. So YouTube, this first look at Baldur's Gate as I go through. I'm a monk in this game. There's other games where I'm a monk, normally monk, druid, or shaman, depending on that. There's druids in here. But running with a monk. And I know it's been a while since it's just been a game. It's just been a gameplay talk about. It's a new game. It's come out. It's really not new, but it's finally released. And so it's a first look at it, kind of. I'm about to steal some stuff, and I decide not because she gave me the bad look. Because I was sus. Thanks, YouTube. Talk to you soon. This is Ronan Kazi. Goodbye.